Underdog, use promo code ALARM. They'll match you up to $100.
I have a cup for Cooper Cup, I guess.
Make sure when you're at the Cheesecake Factory, instead of paying a tip, just write ALARM in there.
I'm like MacGyver with running back.
Yeah, that's pretty true. That's true, and yeah, that's true.
Okay, I'm getting word. We might get Joe Burrow in here. Hey, Joe!
No, I'm not drafting anyone at all.
I'm not going to, so quit asking.
I've got information, man.
Ladies and gentlemen, it is Wednesday. It is lightning round. It is cause for celebration because we got a little tweak to the graphical stuff in the open. So use that promo code ALARM anywhere you find it. Of course, the Cheesecake Factory, the Wendy special, as we call it here. Andrew Cooper, Britt Flynn, and of course, Mr. Howard Bender joining us tonight, the original tight end guru. Howard, my friend, how are you?
I'm doing very, very well. I'm so happy to be here. I've been waiting.
We had to run through everybody like 3 times, and then we're like, you know what? We got to get Howard on here. Like he's blowing up my phone every second of like every day.
Like begging.
I'm just sick of it.
Begging.
Finally got the boss on here, dude. Now we're ready to rock and roll. And for the tight end show, especially. I mean, could it be a better occasion, Howard? You ready?
I think I might be ready. Okay.
Wendy's ready.
Yeah, get those knuckles cracked.
Wendy hit the caps lock for tonight. We love it. Absolutely. Yeah, I am definitely ready. We're hitting the tight ends. We went through quarterbacks, we went through running backs, we went through wide receivers. Last but not least, I don't want to think this is any kind of slight to Andrew Cooper, of course, who is one of the tight end gurus. You have 2 tonight. We're at the mercy of both of you here talking about these guys, but it's going to be a show. It's going to be a lot of fun, and let's just get right into it a little bit here. We'll talk about let's stave off 2022 for just a second here. Your favorite tight end of all time, and we'll just go right around the board, and then we'll start hitting 2022. Howard, for fantasy or reality, give us, if you have one for each, but your favorite tight end of all time.
So my favorite tight end of all time is actually the guy who got me into the position. Not even from a fantasy standpoint, but from a reality standpoint. I'm a Jets fan, right? So just terrible times for tight ends. Mickey Schuler in the 80s was a high quality. That was about as high quality a tight end as you could get for the Jets. But what turned me on to the position was Kellen Winslow in the Chargers. That epic game in Miami. I was 11 years old, right? And I'm like sitting there watching them carry this dude off the field the dude, he blocked the field goal. He had over 160 receiving, like 13 catches, 14 catches that game, scored a touchdown. I mean, to see a guy like that lay it all out there and just leave it out on the field, exhausted at the end, exhausted. He can't even walk under his own power. I was like, that's badass. So I'm in on that. Kellen Winslow. Really just, that was phenomenal performance.
Dude, so I knew about that game, but I didn't know that he blocked a field goal in that game too. Like,
right?
What?
They played special teams too back in those days.
Well, I mean, old school Bill Belichick had Gronk playing special teams and he broke his arm doing it. So maybe that's why modern times, most modern coaches, I know Belichick's like an old school Navy, Triple H back set type guy, but most modern guys don't want to risk that. For me, I have a different one, a real life one versus fantasy. In fantasy football, my favorite all the time isn't even a tight end. Marquise Colston. The year that he was incorrectly labeled a tight end, and you can
thank you, Yahoo.
Oh my! I have a Marquise Colston jersey from that season because I won my big league, and everyone was so pissed. I was like, I'm getting this. I'm wearing to the draft next year. My real life favorite though is, Howard's a Jets fan. I got all the Patriots stuff behind me. My favorite is Ben Coates, baby. Like when I was a kid and I first started getting into football, there was no fantasy football for me then. I was, like 6, 7, 8 or whatever. But, Drew Bledsoe to Ben Coates, back when they wore like the ugly jerseys and the striped jerseys and all those, like that was the start of fantasy football for me. And Ben Coates is a mega star in my mind, so one of the very first tight ends that I like, and I have Ben Coates jersey too. So Britt, what do you think?
So I know that we don't have a Cowboys counter here like we do on Fantasy Alarm on Sirius XM, but I have to bring up one of my favorite Cowboy tight ends ever. And no, it's not Jason Witten. It's actually Jay Novacek. Because you kind of watched what Jay Novacek did with the Cardinals. And then when he finally went over to the Cowboys, you know, he had this big personality. He would wear these giant, like 10-gallon Texas hats everywhere. Like he was the epitome of a Cowboy on and off the field. And he was just so clutch in so many great situations. Like he was Troy Aikman's third down security blanket and did so much during those early to mid 90s runs, which is, you know, I'm sentimental. That's when I remember first starting watching football with my dad and getting into football. And so Jay Novacek is my guy.
See, I'm more of a wide receiver guy, but I mean the tight end position has always been very near and dear as far as fantasy goes. I will say I was, you know, kind of like Coop back in my heyday, trying to find those late round, mid to late round guys. As far as real life, I really like Keith Jackson, first with the Eagles and then with the Super Bowl champion Packers in 96, 97. But as far as fantasy goes, my wheelhouse, and Mr. Scampers mentioned it, Wesley Walls for the Carolina Panthers was a big one. Also, big into Marcus Pollard with the Colts. Definitely one of my favorite fantasy tight ends, definitely in the early 2000s into the mid 2000s, because I believe he ended up in Arizona as well when I believe the Colts drafted Dallas Clark. I want to say in 03 or 04, if I have the timeline right. But yeah, those are definitely my two favorite fantasy tight ends. One of my favorites we'll definitely be talking about here tonight as we head into the 2022 tight end class and talk about them for fantasy here. So let's just get right into it. Actually, before we get into it, if you are drafting on Underdog, make sure you are using promo code ALARM. You will get up to a $100 match on your initial deposit. Best Ball Mania 3 is going on right now. There's going to be a lot more, tournaments. The puppy draft, I'm sure there'll be another one of those. They just had a Pomeranian draft, a $3 one that opened and closed the same day. The demand is there. People are drafting, so just get your fill. You can do $3, $5, $10 leagues. That just fill, not in any tournament, but just 12-man leagues, 10-man leagues. So get your fill. Like I said, promo code ALARM. Howard, there's a clear 5 tight end tier here. Well, I mean, just the elite tier, I would say, between Kelsey, Andrews, Pitts, Waller, and Kittle, those 5. So out of those 5, and we know they have, certain price ranges. Kelsey's going at the, he can go as high as the mid to late first, sometimes in the second, Andrews second. Pitts is getting some steam too. Waller and Kittle, you can kind of get in the 3rd, 4th round. At cost, at ADP, which one of these tight ends are you targeting?
I mean, the way it's been, because I've done like a ton of drafts right now, and I've got shares of all of them, right? And it's just it's kind of where it turns to where I'm at in the draft room, right? If I'm picking in the tail end of the first round, right, I end up with Kelsey a bunch, right? I love taking him. I love the advantage that you do have. I know he's getting a little long in the tooth, and we'll see what happens with the passing attack there in Kansas City with no Tyreek. But I mean, he's a go-to guy for Mahomes. The comfort level is definitely right there. So I think the dogs are enjoying this. So I had the dogs.
Who let the dogs out?
I literally just started muting. I'm like,
woof, woof.
dogs.
No, let them shout, right? I mean, listen, if you don't let the dogs talk, then who, where are we?
That's
where
how
are
you
we
know
as a society if you don't let the dogs speak? So
that's how you know they like what Howard's saying, dude. They're like, Kelsey, he's got that dog in him, boy. You can hear
right?
the dogs getting wild over there.
So I mean, if I'm drafting there, then yeah, then I'll target Kelsey. I'll take him in, if I take him in the it depends on who the running backs are back there. Like, I mean, if Javonte Williams is there, I'm always going to snag him before I snag Kelsey, as much as I do. But then, like, I've had it where, you do some of these like 10 person best balls, right? And Kelsey's right there at the coming back to me at the in the second round. So I've kind of locked in there. Andrews is probably the guy that I don't go after the most. It just seems like where he is going, it seems a little high if you're thinking that there's going to be some touchdown regression, and you want to fill a different spot there. So I'd say Kelsey's my target.
That's why I love having Howard to bounce things off, because Howard, like I'm such a numbers process guy, and Howard's such a good identifier of talent, right? Like guys like Nick Chubb, Javonte Williams, I'm averse to those guys because the setup for them is not what I would love to see. But then if Howard comes in and says that he likes the talent on these guys, it brings me around, dude. And that's the thing with a lot of these players. That's why Kyle Pitts last year, when I was off him, Howard was like, you were the one that kind of talked me back in on Pitts. So for me, I'm with you where I take these guys if they fall to me at the right spot. The Pitts this year is the one that I'm taking really at or above ADP, just because I love his situation. I love his talent. And the one knock on him is quarterback play, but we've seen Marcus Mariota with Arthur Smith, with the same quarterback, have Delaney Walker as a top 5 tight end. And this is a guy that didn't break out till he was like 30 in this league, right? Like he was a blocking tight end for a long time, and he comes over, and in this system, he can be a top 5 player. So with Kyle Pitts playing the way he is, being deployed at wide receiver for 70% of his routes, now has Drake London to take the heat off him a little bit. No Calvin Ridley there. I don't see why this guy wouldn't be super safe. And like Howard said, because Mark Andrews kind of had the crazy breakout year he did last year, he's kind of a shield to Kyle Pitts, where Andrews, as long as he hangs on into the second or even into the third, protects Pitts, and then Pitts slides and becomes a much better value to me. For a guy like Mark Andrews, the problem I have is that everything we know about this offense is going to stay the same as far as how it's set up. They're going to use multiple tight ends, they're going to use fullbacks, and that consolidates the targets to the top 2 guys, which should be Bateman and Andrews, so he should be fairly safe, but they don't like to throw it the way they did last year. Usually with Greg Roman, every time Greg Roman's been an offensive coordinator in this league, his team has been bottom 5 in pass attempts, and usually bottom 2, except for last season where they were 9th. They lost J.K. Dobbins, they lost Gus Edwards. It's just not what they want to do, right? So even if they go from 9th to 15th or 20th, which would still be way above what they usually do, that's going to hurt Mark Andrews. He's not going to produce the way he did last year. That's why, if I'm going to go for somebody in that group at their ADP, I'll go for Mark Andrews, but I'm honestly willing to take any of these guys at the right price with the number of drafts that we end up doing. I don't know, Britt. Is there somebody out of this group that you prefer over everybody else, or what are your thoughts?
So I think everybody's pretty even at ADP. I think that they all offer that kind of upside. What intrigued me today, and I've said this over and over and over, I'm not going to overreact about training camp news, but we saw Felipe Franks, who transitioned from quarterback to tight end, actually on the field today catching passes. And so I'm kind of wondering, with the lack of depth in Atlanta's receiving core, if they're going to run a lot more 12 personnel, kind of put Franks out there in that end line and let Pitts kind of go out wide, because they don't really have many other people. So I think that could be a boost to Pitts' value at his ADP. Otherwise, I think everyone's pretty fair except Darren Waller. I don't really like Waller at his ADP. They went out and added Devontae Adams. There's that competition for targets. And where it bothers me with that competition is that Waller was 20th in yards after the catch last season. He had 2.5 yards per target compared to Kittle's 4.6, Pitts 3, Kelsey 4.5, and then Andrews 2.8. So if his targets diminish, he's not going to return that value where he's going. I don't think, at least. So any of these guys are good. I like Pitts the best, but Waller is kind of a little bit of an iffy situation for me.
Yeah, I get it. I get some of the trepidation with Waller just because of the increased target competition, but I am like full stop 100% in on Kyle Pitts this year. If you looked at the banner on the Lightning Round stream, I believe he is the cheat code for 2022, like at the tight end position. He's just a freak of nature. And I was watching the FFPC Pros versus Joe stream where they were talking about, they had John Hansen on from Fantasy Points, FSWA Hall of Famer. He was talking about his whole philosophy of, I want to be able to get ahead of the breakouts. I want the breakouts this year. He took Javonte Williams. I believe he took CeeDee Lamb. He took Kyle Pitts. Like, he is all about like, and that really resonated with me because I've never really thought of it that way. It just seems like a basic concept, but and then what Coop said about Andrews as like a shield to Kyle Pitts, which is just an absolutely perfect way of saying that, because that is, he said that, and I never thought about that way, but I use Andrews as that shield because as soon as he comes off early and I'm in the second round and kind of hoping that Pitts can get to me, at the very beginning or at the end of the second round, I'm hating seeing Andrews go at like the 1-2 turn because I know Pitts somebody's going to reach for him. He's one of those guys you have to reach for. At 21 years old, he put up 1,000-yard season, 20% target share on that team, was fourth in targets per snap and yards per route run as well. The sky is the limit for Kyle Pitts. I know it's a very, used phrase, but I mean, now that they have Drake London there, I mean, yeah, it's going to take some pressure off of Kyle Pitts. Just let him do what he does best. Touchdown regression is coming. He scored one. He hasn't scored a touchdown on American soil yet. And I would certainly hope that he can do that this season.
Am I supposed to just raise my hand, or am I just supposed to blurt if I want to talk about something?
You're Howard Bender, man.
You have carte blanche.
Yeah, you can fire us and take our spot if you want at any point, really. So
you have carte blanche. It doesn't work like that. I'm not that guy. Come on.
You did. Though you did give my job to Ian Fish once.
Dude, it's Ian Fish, right? I mean, you got a 9-year-old handicapping games like that. Dude was on point, right?
He put up the stickers at our the Scott Fish Bowl live draft. Like, he was roasting our picks. Like, I took Gabe Davis in like the 7th round, and I got not only did I get the sleeper, wow, but I got Ian Fish just absolutely roasting me for that pick too. So, I mean, I deserved it. I mean, I can't fight back with a 9-year-old in most instances.
So hence, there you go. That's what it is. But I wanted to ask about, Waller and the situation. I see that, Mr. Scampers in the chat is talking about Foster Moreau. My question to each of you guys, and I guess we could start with Coop because you probably have the most familiarity with Josh McDaniels and the type of offense that he likes to run. Do we not? I mean, Devontae Adams isn't going to get force-fed the targets like he was getting in Green Bay. It's just not going to happen. That's not, that's not the scheme. That's not the offense. And that's Rodgers being completely dependent on him. Derek Carr's not like that, in that sense, nor do I think that this offense kind of dictates that. So, if you've got Adams and, Renfro, who, might suffer from targets also, do we not think that Josh McDaniels puts together a scheme that kind of features the tight end? I mean, he kind of built Gronk, didn't he?
Yep, absolutely. And the thing is, people don't realize about Waller is that under Gruden and for the last couple of years, Waller actually played a lot more in line than he did playing out wide. Like when you like in your mind, you think, oh, converted wide receiver. He probably plays a ton of wide receiver. He actually plays a ton in line. So I think it's going to be that same offense we've seen, that Erhardt Perkins that's based on deception, and it's going to lead to a lot of play action, a lot of massive spike weeks. Outside of those top 3 guys, I don't think there's going to be a lot of guys that are fantasy relevant at all because of, they brought Jakob Johnson over to play fullback. They're going to use Foster Moreau as like the second blocking tight end. But if you want to think about what Foster Moreau could be at his max, with or without injuries to Waller, is Martellus Bennett. You know what I mean? I think that's the way they're going to use him, as like the extra tackle, which is pivotal in this offense, especially when your line is that bad. That's what the Patriots did all those years, was use that extra tight end as a Band-Aid for when they had line issues, and they were able to get away with it. So I think what's really going to happen is that the target's going to be highly consolidated among Adams, Renfro, and Waller, but it's not going to look like Howard suggested, like an Adams type offense where he just goes out and runs around, and then Rodgers runs around.
14 targets a game.
Playground ball.
Yeah, but you're going to be surprised. I think people are going to be surprised at how wide open these guys are getting, because that offense is set up where they use the running down back and they don't throw him the ball, and they hit you with play action, and then they bring in the passing down back, and then once you think it's a pass, they hit you with draws and screens and all sorts of weird things. It's all about trying to trick you into thinking something. So I think it's going to be interesting from week to week. I like all these guys more in best ball because of that, because it becomes unpredictable.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, that was one of the things that, when I was breaking
You
down
literally took the words out of my mouth.
I'm sorry, what's that?
She said I took the
Oh,
words
I just
out of
said
her
Coop
mouth.
literally took the words out of my mouth. I was gonna say I like him in best ball, but that's about it.
Aw. Darren.
Aw.
Darren.
Not Waller, but Foster Moreau.
Oh, yeah.
I
Wow.
mean, the thing with Waller is
We're
that
talking, the stealing outcome for Moreau.
Yeah, well, the thing is, like Howard makes a good point, which applies to not only Adams but Waller, is the 14 targets, right? Like that's been the whole thing with Darren Waller in the past couple of years. Is he's the only guy getting those crazy games. There's no other tight end that has multiple games over the last couple of seasons of 15 plus targets. Like what other tight end that even has a single game in their career with 19 targets? And then after the game, the coach comes out and says, "We're just going to keep doing that because that's that guy." Like this is a new coach, it's a new offense. I think he's going to still be a guy that if you take him at his ADP, you start him every single week. But it's just like I just don't see a world where we get the Darren Waller of old that comes out and has 15 targets, because to get that Darren Waller, what did we needed? We needed Antonio Brown to bring a fake helmet to practice and take his feet off. We needed we needed them to draft Henry Ruggs in the first round and for that guy to go to jail. Both their third round picks that year are no longer on the team. It's just like Brian Edwards and Lynn Bowden. Like it's been a circus over there of errors that have led to Waller getting that consolidation of targets, and I think that's over now. But like once again, in this particular offense, Waller is going to be a fairly safe guy, to put in your lineup week to week. It's just I wouldn't expect the old Waller.
Yeah, for sure. Let's go over to the next couple of tight ends because they kind of have their own tier. Dalton Schultz and TJ Hawkinson, who I would say they kind of seem like consolation prizes if you're drafting and maybe you miss out on those top 5 tight ends. But I don't see Dalton Schultz that way. But Howard, I don't know. What do you think about Schultz and Hawkinson as kind of the pseudo elite tight ends and how do you feel about them at cost? Because I know Schultz seems like he goes a little bit higher than maybe people are comfortable with, and Hawkinson maybe kind of lower. There's not really a middle ground with those two as far as, certainly in best ball, I would probably say the same in redraft. But what do you think about those two?
Those are two guys that I just don't have interest in. Like at their ADP, I'm building my team in different ways. What I've been doing is if I don't get one of those top 5 tight ends, then I just I jump ship from the position for a little while instead of fishing in the middle the middle area of the Hawkinsons or the or the Dalton Schultzes. I go all the way down. I go deeper, and we'll talk about those obviously in a little bit. But if I had to choose one over the other, I would take Schultz over Hawkinson. I think Hawkinson is incredibly overrated. And you're talking about a team that just brought in, they've got, Amon-Ra St. Brown, who's already there, but, they bring in DJ Chark, and then they've also, they draft Jameson Williams. So, the offense is looking like they want to go, to the receivers. They never really seem to go to TJ Hawkinson, like enough, right? I mean, have you ever had a season where you've owned TJ Hawkinson? I don't mean own him as in like, owning. I mean like you own him in fantasy and his stats. I always got to watch the way I speak sometimes. But, have you ever walked away from a season and been like, TJ Hawkinson, baby, that dude does it for me.
I mean,
that was me at the beginning of last off season.
Yeah, it is a. But in his defense, it's only been a couple of seasons, but you're right, Howard. It's even when he's been healthy, and even when he was leading the team in targets last year, you didn't really get the warm and fuzzies from having him. It never felt like it did, owning Waller or owning somebody like that, where it's just they just win you games. You know what I mean? Like he gets you by, but he doesn't quite win you games. And to be honest, Dalton Schultz kind of feels like that as well. And when you watch him play, he's one of those dudes that it's not impressive the way he does it, and the numbers back it up. Only 4 of all 108 targets, whatever he got, only 14 catches versus man-to-man. He had, according to Pro Football Focus, he had more catches on just completely uncovered plays than he did when somebody was actually covering him, or when the rest were all in zone. It just kind of, he sneaks out. He's one of those guys like Robert Tonyan in the year he had. His biggest attribute seems to be that he's not the focal point of the defense and he sneaks out, So when I look at, anybody that's a fantasy line member knows this, but you guys might not. We have one of the best tools we have is the ADP tool we have, because it not only has a composite ADP of a number of sites, but you can see where these guys are going in like high stakes. So we have like real time sports, NFFC, FPC, Yahoo's on there. Howard, I think we have Underdog on there too now, right? Like just
yeah, it's on there.
Yeah. So it's like you can see the ADPs for these guys across the board and see where they're all at. And you can see that the first 5 guys go in the top 50 picks. And then these 2 are on an island of their own at 62 and 73. Like Howard said, I'm just not typically drafting them unless they slide like crazy, And there was a comment in the chat I saw, somebody saying Goddard over both, right? I think it was Toronto Dave. Yeah, there it is. Goddard over both. To me, that's when I would take one of these guys. Is if you get in a draft and somebody just loves Goddard, somebody loves Dawson Knox, and now all of a sudden TJ Hawkinson or Schultz are falling to tight end 8 or 9, that's when I take them. But when I do, I still go out and take a second upside tight end later, because we know that Jamison Williams is coming back. And, like Howard said, they already have Chark, Amon-Ra St. Brown, Swift. Like it's going to get tight. We know that Michael Gallup's coming back. I mean, even if I take Zach Ertz, who's in the next group, we know that DeAndre Hopkins is coming back. So that's why a lot of times once I get out of that first group, I always take an upside stab later, because, as we've seen every year for the past 5 years, somebody's come from outside the top 15 or so tight ends to finish top 5. So for me, I'll take these guys if they slide, but I'm not. It's crazy. I see people really banging the drum for Hawkinson and Schultz, and just for me, I see no reason to go up above and beyond to get them. I know, Britt, you're a Cowboys fan, so it's a little dicey once we get into Schultz territory. So I'd like to hear what you have to say on that, assuming you're not frozen right now.
Well, it's not even my fandom. It's the fact that Schultz was 6th in targets, 3rd in receptions, and then 5th in touchdowns, and that was with Amari Cooper on the team last season. Now there's no more Amari Cooper, no more Cedric Wilson, no more any of those people. There's 44% of the whole targets of the entire team last year are gone. That target share is going to be extremely condensed. He's in a better offense. They do run that West Coast offense, which does set up the short passes for the long passes. Schultz is going to be that guy. Like, they don't really have a reliable slot receiver anymore. So Schultz is going to be that guy who catches those like little short passes. He's going to be set up to get a ton of targets. I think he's going to be PPR gold. And then if you look at Hawkinson, like, he's the exact opposite of Schultz. Instead of the condensed target share that Schultz got, Hawkinson's situation got way more ambiguous. Hawkinson hasn't shown that he can stay healthy, on the other hand, as well. I think Schultz has literal tight end 1 upside. I think that he finishes top 5 this season, and I'm not scared at taking him at his ADP at all.
Yeah, Hawkinson he's a risky proposition for everything that you guys have said about the target distribution there. Now there's a lot of cooks in the kitchen, and you could see a possibility of Hawkinson being the 4th or possibly the 5th target in that offense. In an offense that Vegas has winning 7 games this year, like with Jared Goff as quarterback. I mean, it's not a great proposition to make, and that's falls down to most of those guys, with the exception of Swift in that offense, who I really like, is one of the guys I'm targeting. But this is not the running back show anymore. Dalton Schultz, however, just because of we don't have a timeline on Gallup, and like guys of Dr. Edwin Porras of Fantasy Points have come out and said, Gallup's timetable realistically is bleeding into like October and possibly November. So it's very interesting to see, Dalton Schultz, he could be that top 2 target on that team with Lamb. We all expect Lamb to make that big leap now that he doesn't have that competition. He's going to be on the field for 90% at least of routes. So that's really going to open that up for Dalton Schultz to be that featured second option in that offense. Like, unless Jalen Tolbert just comes out and sets the world on fire, or we get, just to blow up James Washington or something, I can't really see it. I mean, Dallas is going to be throwing the ball 650 times this year. So, I mean, Now, if he can carve out a 18 to 20% target share, which is it, I would say that's certainly possible. But I think they now know what they really have in Dalton Schultz is a guy that can help carry that offense. I mean, they traded Amari Cooper. They went out and got a day 2, day 3 wide receiver, but I wouldn't say they really replaced him with guys that are that threatening to the target share outside of Lamb. So that's why I'm in on Dalton Schultz, and he can get a bit pricey. But Hawkinson is a guy that's kind of like that break glass in case of emergency, where if he's there and he's falling, which he does do in drafts, I'm fine with him, but I know what he can do. But to me, he seems kind of like that Hunter Henry with the Chargers, where he has the upside. He's in a good offense that's going to throw the ball, but there's just not ceiling there. And I think that's what we're kind of starting to see now with Hawkinson. We expected that kind of Kelsey-like ceiling, and I just don't know if it's in the cards unless there's just a dramatic offensive shift in that offense of the Lions.
Hawkinson sucks. Sorry, I just want to give my professional opinion there for a second. He's trash. It's a wasted draft pick.
I love it.
That's awesome. Clip it. Clip that.
I could get that kind of production in the 13th round.
Well, we'll talk about that, certainly. Let's talk about some of the other later tight ends here, because we've got the next group, which you can kind of say they are the tight end dead zone, if that could be a thing, with Dallas Goddard, Zach Ertz, Dawson Knox, Pat Freiermuth, Mike Gesicki. Out of those tight ends, we'll kind of switch it up here. Still go to Howard first, though. Which of these tight ends between Goddard, Ertz, Knox, Freiermuth, Gesicki is primed to disappoint fantasy managers this year?
I think the easy choice is Knox. I kind of felt like he was kind of playing really, kind of over what really he should have been doing last year. But I'm not 100% sure, especially now. I mean, you've got, Diggs and Davis on the outside. You've got a decent slot guy, but I still think that Knox gets to work. I think I'm most worried about Freiermuth, right? I mean, are we not concerned that this big clunky tight end doesn't fit into all the motion that Matt Canada finally gets to do now that now that Big Ben is no longer under center? I mean, listen, I'm not a Trubisky guy by any stretch of the imagination, but the dude's still mobile, right? Like he can run the RPO a lot better than Big Ben could ever even think about doing it. And so I kind of worry with the condition of the offensive line in Pittsburgh, which still just looks like hot trash. I worry that they're going to just kind of tether Freiermuth to the line and just have him block for the most part, because I think I think this offense just kind of moves a little fast for Freiermuth and what he's really capable of.
Yep, and that's why I tweeted out the other day that Howard does this. One of my most referenced series is, and I'm not just saying this because you're on the show, Howard, because I have said it on Twitter a week ago. Howard does a series where he talks about these offensive systems and how they change and what you need to know about these quarterbacks. And if you don't know how the offense works, then how can you possibly start predicting fantasy football? Like, how can you start projecting where the ball is going to go if you don't know what the offense is? And the big thing for me with Freiermuth is that people don't realize that Big Ben was perfect for Freiermuth. And when you look at the stats, which I put a bunch of them in the article, Big Ben was releasing the ball faster than any other quarterback in the league, 2.26 seconds to release the ball. That's faster than Tom Brady, and Tom Brady is the king of getting away with intentional grounding, right? Like, we all know it. He just throws the ball right at the guy's feet, and the refs are like, oh, Tom, like, that's intentional grounding, But, like, anyway, he gets the ball up quick. Freiermuth had the third best catchable target rate of any tight end, and that's because Big Ben, despite having a noodle arm, can still throw short zingers to you. He was putting it in his hands in the end zone. Freiermuth dropped a game winner 1 week, but, and 121.6 passer rating when targeting Freiermuth. Like, do you think one of these guys is going to come in their first year in the system, either Kenny Pickett as a rookie or Mitch Trubisky, who's already washed out of a team? You think they're going to come in and have a 121 passer rating throwing to any player on this team? I don't think so. So I think conditions now have gotten worse for Freiermuth, and he's not even the guy of this group that I like the least. the guy I like the least in this crew.
Nice.
How about
That whole
that?
diatribe. What
How
a
about-
segue.
How about that?
Leading
boys?
us on.
How about
Right?
that, boys?
How to
'Cause
bury the lead by
yeah,
Andrew Cooper.
because dude, Mike Gesicki getting dunked on this one, right? I mean, Howard, bro, dude. When I brought up Gesicki, it was I you having the show the day that they showed that Tua deep ball that Tyreek Hill's waiting under it, like look checking his watch, on some planet, Tua as the QB 18 off the board is going to make Tyreek Hill the wide receiver 9 and Jalen Waddle the wide receiver 14, and then Mike Gesicki still going to be a top 10 tight end. On no planet does that happen, and I'm not projecting Mike Gesicki to get more targets than Tyreek Hill or Jalen Waddle, not even if there's a fire, and neither are you. So why are you drafting Mike Gesicki in your leagues? You're outside of your mind. You know what I mean?
Expired.
I was one of the biggest Gesicki proponents. I was one of the biggest
guys. We've lost
Gesicki
it.
proponents like a couple years ago, man. But oh man, Chan Gailey's not walking through that door, ladies and gentlemen. Like the Mike Gesicki, you got to wait for him to get out from the franchise tag for him to be good again. So just fade the whole bunch.
Crying.
Goddard, throw him in there too.
I
don't know, Britt, who do you like? Who do you like least of this crew?
Do we need to take a pause? Like this is. We need to
We've
take
got
a
an
5,
ant
a little
problem.
intermission for everybody to. Oh my god. So, that was amazing.
That was
So between just seeing Howard almost lose his shit was probably the funniest thing ever.
Almost?
I know that we've well, I'm being PC, man. Let's meditate for a second. In and then out. Are we good? All right. So between all these guys, it was between Freiermuth and Gesicki for me. I think that maybe McDaniel kind of gets Gesicki involved in sort of the Kittle role. So that's what tipped it to Freiermuth for me. Last year, he was number 1 in red zone targets and number 6 in touchdowns. Coop, you mentioned Ben's accuracy rating when targeting him. You compare that to Trubisky's accuracy rating in his last year as a starter. He was 31st in the league in accuracy. I don't really think that Matt Canada is going to risk a touchdown by having Trubisky throw that. He's going to run an RPO. He's going to run like Najee Harris into the ground. I really don't think that Freiermuth is going to get these red zone targets. And he's set up for all of this touchdown regression. And like Howard mentioned, that O-line still looks really gross. So he might be asked to block a little bit more than he was last season. So that's kind of what edged it out for me. But really anybody in this tier, I don't feel good about it. You know what I mean?
Yeah, my lean is to Dallas Goddard here, and as far as we know AJ Brown is now in town. Best friends with Jalen Hurts. Devonta Smith is there as well. Quez Watkins is getting some buzz in camp as the slot guy. But like looking at underdog, like we talk about Schultz and Hawkinson, Dallas Goddard's going less than a round behind Hawkinson, it just seems absurd the way. I feel like there should be a way bigger gap there. And then Dallas Goddard's also leading this group as far as ADP. And just based on how little the Philadelphia Eagles threw the ball last year, granted, they're not going to go out and get AJ Brown to run the ball, at a 58% clip or whatever it was last season. I don't see that continuing to be a thing. I think they kind of had to run so much out of necessity when they saw what worked and apparently wanted to go sign the corpse of Jordan Howard to run the ball some more.
Too soon.
Sorry, you had to know this coming in that I was going to slander some running back.
Right, man. I think
I talked nice about DeAndre Swift.
Oof.
It's it's not quite Coop's yin and yang, but it's all I got. But
it's Kev's yin and yang compliments.
Yes, backhanded positive compliments to running backs and horribly negative put them in 6 feet under for Jordan Howard always. But yeah, it's not Tevin Coleman, so let's just be happy about that. Oof. Anyway, Dallas Goddard. I'm just not a fan at that ADP, like going right behind those two pseudo elite. Say what you want about Hawkinson, Howard, but just I just don't see. I think it's very, very rich at wide receiver 9, and he's one of the best blocking tight ends. Like since 2018, he's been like the second best blocker per grade by PFF, right behind George Kittle. I mean, that's what Goddard's pretty much known for. And then he finally got a window of opportunity with Zach Ertz getting traded to Arizona. He was fine. He wasn't great, but he was fine. And now he gets AJ Brown to contend with. Like, I want no part of that, especially if I'm in a redraft league where I have to choose to start a tight end every week. Like, I just do not know what kind of thought process would have to enter my mind to start Dallas Goddard on purpose in a league.
Yeah, that's the real scary thing, is that because in best ball and something like the Scott Fish Bowl is hidden premium, you can make arguments for all these guys. But when it becomes a normal 10 or 12 team league where you start one tight end, if your guy doesn't have top 5 upside, then you mathematically have one of the worst starting tight ends in your league. And it's just like something like Howard pointed out with Knox, some of these guys, I just don't trust them from week to week. So it's just that whole group. Why would I spend up on a guy I don't think can be top 5? So let's get to this next group, because there's some guys in here I like way better than that whole group, than that entire group.
Well, before we do, before we get into the late group here, let's just talk about, because you talked about drafting when to draft one tight end, when to draft 2. So Coop has a great, the Yin Yang article. Go check that out on Fantasy Alarm, of course. Howard, I'll pose this to you as far as, it's a controversial topic. Some people say you should only draft one tight end, and that can be the case for if you're going to draft a Kelsey or an Andrews or Pitts or whatever the case may be. But once you start getting into these, and Coop said it with Dalton Schultz, he wants to draft a second tight end with him to kind of, flatten that out a bit. So, I mean, is that kind of your line of thinking too, where you're going to draft a second tight end if you miss out on that maybe top 6, top 7 group?
If I miss out on the top 5 group, I'm gonna, I'm gonna probably go, because what I do is I work down, and we're gonna talk about these guys, but I'll leave if I don't get that top 5 guy. I will take a tight end late, and then grab a second tight end who I do think has some upside to him, because listen, at that point there, it's not costing me anything to take one of these guys, right? And if I can get 500 to 600 yards and maybe half a dozen touchdowns, I'd be, ridiculously psyched to have that, knowing that was like my 13th round, my 14th round pick. So, I'll definitely take the second tight end and play the matchups. I feel like, I know matchups well enough in the NFL to kind of pick and choose which tight end has the better matchup. And I'll do it that way. Right. That's when I'll take a second tight end. Because because I won't even touch the middle. I won't touch the middle. 7 through like 12 or 13 in the rankings, I probably won't own any of them this year.
Yeah, and I'm all for that. And I think that, I don't want to name drop any other sites, but there's a site that rhymes with Smanasy Smos, where basically it's a big contest where everybody tries to guess which tight end gets drafted tight end 10 and finishes tight end 10. And that's what I think pushes this whole market of having tight ends 7 through 10 on a list that are just the most boring possible picks you could take. And it's not helping anybody win their league. Everybody in that contest, you shake hands and pat yourself on the back because you said a guy would be tight end 11 and he finishes tight end 12, and the formula gives you a bunch of points for that. Like, that's not helping you in your fantasy league. So that's my concern with that particular thing that's pushing rankings throughout the entire industry, So for me, I like Howard said, I'll wait and take somebody I think is remotely safe, and then I'll shoot for the moon. And if I don't hit on that guy, I'll drop him week 1 and I'll get the next guy. I put my rankings out there so everyone can follow me if they want. We were on Logan Thomas, all these guys. So, that's how we found, and same thing with quarterback. Like, think about Mark Andrews, tight end 15, Patrick Mahomes, quarterback 15. You weren't drafting them as your starting quarterback or tight end, but if you didn't draft them as a second tight end or second quarterback, then you didn't get a chance at that upside, and you were just like every other jamoke out there trying to throw $71 fab, hoping that the other guy threw 70. Like, it's such a ridiculous gamble when you could just take 2. If you fill your lineup taking 9 wide receivers before you take your first tight end, you don't need to fill your bench with 6 wide receivers. It's okay to take a second tight end.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't really have a philosophy like that's set. Oh, sorry. I don't have
go
a
ahead,
philosophy
Britt.
that's set on that, but I think that, you know, if you can do bully in somebody's, you know, guy's falls, then you can play a bully tight end situation. Or, you know, if you've got one and then you want to fill out somebody else. I'm more like a best available player, but I don't want to subscribe to either doing one or the other. I kind of just always want to see how the board falls and where I can get the most value out of people.
Yeah, and I'll put up Wendy's comment here in a standard league. If you get a top 5 tight end, you only draft one. I mean, that I subscribe to that just because if you're drafting that top 5 tight end, you're making the bet that that guy is going to be in your lineup every single week minus the bye week. Yep. Like that. Why muddy up? Why take a bullet out of the chamber to, you know, draft maybe the next Justin Jefferson in the double-digit rounds, or Brandon Ayuk, or Jalen Waddle, even like, or Michael Pittman? These guys, these wide receivers that could be, you know, league winner type guys, but you're gonna take a Travis Kelce and then come back to draft a, Hunter Henry, Dallas Goddard, you know, last year. You know, if I'm drafting Kelce, I mean, in best ball, it's one thing because you have to kind of get another guy at the onesie positions, and that's where you can draft someone super, super late. But in a managed league, you know, there's going to be guys out there. Guys pop up all the time. I mean, we see you can get usable weeks out of guys like last year, Tyler Conklin, you know, Ricky Seals-Jones, guys like that are just littered on the waiver wire. Like there's usually at least startable options in an emergency or in a bye week. I mean, obviously you're not going to be dropping the top 5 guys, so you have to pick somebody up. But you know, those guys are out there. So yeah, if you have, you know, the late stage, you know, tight ends that we'll talk about here in a second, or you draft that Goddard, Ertz, Knox, Freiermuth, Gesicki, yeah, you want to pair them up just to kind of cover yourself. You know, I think it's really good strategy in that league, and that's where it's going to make sense with roster construction and allocation of making sure that you have your, you know, call it a onesie position just because, you know, it's going to score less than the running backs and wide receivers typically, but you still want to make sure that you're getting, you know, usable weeks out of those guys.
Yeah. Just to tack on, like Kev absolutely said it best there, where if you use the capital early, you don't need to use your bench, right? And it's kind of same thing with like running back. If you use if you draft 4 running backs in your first like 6 picks, you don't need to fill your bench with running backs, right?
Yep.
And like, but if you go 0 RB, then you do need to fill your bench with running backs. You're filling in for the weak positions. And I can't believe these words are about to come out of my mouth because it's incredibly stupid, but you need to think about it as like 0 tight end. Like if you load up everywhere else and go 0 tight end, then load up at tight end. And by load up, I mean take 2 of them, you know, but it's the same. It should be like that for every position. Whatever you lean into early, be it quarterback, tight end, wide receiver, running back, lean into the other positions with your bench. That's what your bench is for.
To kind of add on to that, and this is just like a basic fantasy roster construction type thing when you're sitting there in your draft room, right? You want to draft so that you don't want to have to make lineup decisions every week, right? You don't want to sit there and say, which QB should I do? Like, it always kills me when somebody drafts like Patrick Mahomes and then all of a sudden they like, you know, they turn around and they draft like, you know, Trey Lance or you know, or somebody like, you know, like somebody hype like that.
Carr, yeah.
To do what, right? Yeah, Carr. Like, do you want to like make these lineup decisions every single week? And it's the same thing. Running back, wide receiver, tight end. It's the same thing. If you are investing in that, you know, in Travis Kelce or any other top 5 tight end, don't worry about it. Like, fill in for the bye week. You want to just leave them in your lineup, and that's really what you have to do when you're coming away from from your draft. You can be stoked about your late round upside picks and you know, this guy could do this and that guy could do that, but you don't want to have to fight through the decisions every single week. You want to be able to just look at your roster and be like, yeah, I'm good to leave that for next week.
Yeah, and folks, that's coming from the person who may have answered the most start-sit questions in the entire history of this industry. I mean, you Mr. Sunday Morning, Howard. Is that not? the case, brother. So yeah, you like Howard's doing a little self-preservation with that advice right there, dude. Because,
But I
Fantasy
mean,
Alarm members know we do our best, man. But if you set yourself up with Joe Burrow versus Justin Herbert every week, it's gonna be a nightmare for all of us.
yeah, why would you do that to yourself?
Give him some time to have a coffee in the morning or something. Damn.
He's got no time. He's got no time in the morning these days because he just hits a ridiculous baseball parlay every week, and he can't escape that. Can't escape that NBC show or what he's got going on.
Oh my! Well, the last point
are canceled, bro. Yeah.
The last point I'll make is just that you need to when you're drafting these top tight ends, like draft like you're right. Like have a conviction that when you draft Kyle Pitts, you're like Kyle Pitts is going to be tight end 1. He's going to redefine the position. He has that ability. Draft like you're right. Travis Kelce, I don't care if he's 32 years old. He's getting passes from Patrick Mahomes and Tyreek Hill is gone. Like draft like you're right. Have some conviction. Mark Andrews. Okay, they got rid of Marquise Brown. It's going to be a super condensed target tree in Baltimore, and I think Mark Andrews is still going to be a stud and catch a lot of touchdowns, catch a lot of passes from Lamar Jackson. Perfect. That's like the roster construction is as important as the players you select.
Amen.
Yeah, let's talk about some of the later tight ends then, because we talked about the elite guys, we talked about the pseudo elite, we talked about the absolutely terrible TJ Hawkinson, of course. In that tight end, the tight end 2 range after those top 12 guys are gone. Coop is just he's got his hands, he's ready to get in deep, get his hands dirty. Cole, I'll just list some tight ends. I mean, anybody up to the top 12, we're looking at like the Cole Komets of the world, the Hunter Henrys, the Hen Houses, we like to say, Noah Fant, Robert Tunyon, Albert O. I'm not going to try to pronounce his name. Evan Engram, the Coop favorite, of course. So Howard, who do you find yourself drafting the most? If you are, if you grab one of the guys outside of the top 5, or you're stockpiling a group of these tight ends to maybe just kind of collect them and kind of find lightning in a bottle between at least hopefully one of them. Like, who are you drafting? Who is your conviction on in this tight end 2 range?
When I go through this range here and I'm drafting out of this pool, I want to take 2 out of 3 guys. I want to take Hunter Henry. Right? I just, the scheme just, Belichick isn't going to shake stuff up too badly with McDaniels not there, right? I mean, I think we're pretty safe to say that Hunter Henry is going to remain a good, solid red zone target. He's going to get the work. I like him. Gerald Everett. I think, listen, he's behind Keenan Allen. He's behind Mike Williams. He's probably got a little bit, and there's Josh Palmer there too. He's probably got a little bit of a cap. But Jared Cook in this system, had like 600 yards and 6 touchdowns. The way that this scheme just dictated. And it was kind of funny too, because it was almost a duplicate, almost a complete duplicate season for Cook going for, he did that for the Saints the season before when he was working in Joe Lombardi's system. So I like Everett there, but the guy who I'm kind of just, sneaking in there and taking on is big Irv Smith from Minnesota. You got Kevin O'Connell in there as the new, the new coach. The offensive coordinator comes from the whole system there as well. They're going to be crazy pass heavy. We're going to see a lot of 3 wide receiver sets with releasing the tight end as a target. I think he's going to be almost like like when Higbee had that first breakout, right? And I didn't think that he was going to sustain it, but when Higbee had that first breakout, I kind of feel like Irv Smith could be in that range. So like I would take a guy like Everett and or Henry, because I feel like they've got a pretty safe floor for the season. And then Irv Smith is my upside guy if you want to talk about the dynamic tier rankings that we're doing over at Fantasy Alarm. I think 2 of those 3, and I'm good for the rest of the season. I don't even have to worry about it unless there's an injury.
Yep. And I think that's the way that the whole dynamic tier, yin yang, call it what you want. Like that's how the system works. Like Gerald Everett, the reason you don't just take Gerald Everett, like Howard said, is because, he needs probably a couple injuries to be that tight end 2 overall. You know what I mean? Because they have the target hogs there. Like Eckler's always going to be a drain on the passing game with the targets and stuff. But you know that you can put him in there and he's going to be the tight end 1 and give you a shot, right? Like he doesn't have the insane basement level floor that a guy like Evan Ingram has. Like I love Evan Ingram. Anyone that's watched the show even one time has heard me say that name. I say it every single time. You know what I mean? Just like I say every single episode I say, whenever you go to any website, be it Prize Picks, Underdog, Yahoo, plug in Yahoo. I mean, plug in Alarm. Just see if it works. Like that's been our whole joke about like go to Cheesecake Factory, say Alarm. It might work. We have deals with so many places in this industry that before you go and deposit money on the website, just type Alarm in there. It probably works. You know what I mean? I think
probably email me the word Alarm and you end up with like a free t-shirt.
Yeah, email Howard Alarm. I mean, we'll take care of you. You know what I mean? Like that's
I've been trying to do that for the last year or so. Nothing.
My headset must have kicked out. That last comment.
It's for members only, Kevin. So yeah, so that's that's it. I've been saying it like a broken record. But the thing is, I understand that Evan Ingram has a crazy low floor. Like he might not be a top 4 target on the team. There's an outside chance that Dan Arnold beats him out. You know what I mean? It's like, so you can't just take him. Even I'm not that crazy. You know what I mean? We're taking him because he could be the top target on the team. Cole Comet could easily be a top 2 target. Hunter Henry could be a top 2 target. That's why you go and take somebody like Gerald Everett, because his role is defined. You got a safe guy. You take, even a Noah Fant. He's probably the 3rd target on the team, but at least we know he's the starting tight end. And then you have something in your back pocket that's safe. And then with the other pick, you go crazy. You take, like you said, Hunter Henry was a top 2 target on the team last year. He's one of the best tight ends in the league versus man-to-man, which is what makes him so good in the red zone when teams are going 0 lockdown coverage, right? Like he's got all the things you need, and all we need is for Mac Jones to no longer be a rookie quarterback, which this year he's not. So maybe he does take a step forward. On the flip side, maybe they brought in Devontae Parker. They got all these other options. Maybe he's not that good. So it's a pairing system. And that's why I like a number of these guys. I would rather draft Cole Komet than any person in the section before, because I don't think Dallas Goddard can get more targets than AJ Brown and Devonta Smith. I don't think Gesicki can get more targets than the other guys. I don't think that pretty across the board. I don't think Pat Farabee is going to get more targets than Claypool and Deontay Johnson. I'm pretty confident that Cole Komet's going to get the 2nd most targets on that team. We just don't know if they're going to be good or not. He didn't even score a touchdown last year. So it's a matter of giving yourself exposure to upside for me. So those are the guys I like. I wrote a full article on it, so I don't even know why I'm still talking. Britt, what do you think about this group?
Yeah, I think we're all pretty used to it at this point about you getting on a tangent on every single tight end in the category. No, I'm kidding. But yeah, I really like Hunter Henry. Everybody talks about his touchdown regression because last year he was number 2 in touchdowns, but he was also 3rd in average depth of target and 9th in yards per target. Mac Jones obviously is going to take a 2nd-year leap. And then the Patriots also dumped a fullback off their roster. So I'm pretty sure that sets them up to run more or to pass more instead of run more. They also brought in Devontae Parker. I don't really see that as a big obstacle to him getting targets. I'm pretty sure Devontae Parker is getting dusty, if not already dust, and has dealt with his fair share of injuries. And Mac Jones is going to take that 2nd-year leap, and they have a breakfast narrative. Why do we always forget the breakfast narrative?
I saw that picture of them having breakfast together on Martha's Vineyard. Did you see that? Literally breakfast.
Yep.
Yeah, I'm saying. And so, I think he has the highest upside out of anybody in this year, just because he is such a favorite of Mac Jones in the red zone. I think if you're going to PPR, then Cole Komet's definitely in play. But I just like Henry the most for his upside here.
Yeah, like there's a bunch of guys that I'm going through my exposures right now. Thanks to Michael Dubner, by the way, of RotoViz. He put out a Google sheet on his pinned tweet for like best ball exposures and putting rosters in for like underdog and best ball 10s and things like that. So I can pull this up real quick. It looks like my highest exposure to tight end in this tier is Gerald Everett. I really, really like Gerald Everett. If he does 60 and 600, he's already paying off his ADP. Right now it's I don't even know, tight end 17. I mean, you can pay that off clear in that offense. Absolutely. Something happens to Allen and Williams. I mean, he could be fighting for Josh Palmer for the second target in that offense, getting passes from Justin Herbert. I mean, so there's standalone value there, but talk about it like I talk about a running back, that there's contingent value as well. With a lot of these tight ends in that tier. Robert Tonyan went on the training camp PUP, and he's a possibility to start the season on the actual PUP list, where it means that he could miss 4 weeks off of that ACL injury. But that wide open Packers, target hierarchy, I mean, any number of guys could earn targets in that offense. And Robert Tonyan is I would say a cheap shot, and we've seen him be productive. Obviously, most of that with touchdowns, but he's certainly somebody to consider in that range as well. I mean, Cole Komet kind of goes without saying, but Coop said it. We've all said it. I mean, he pretty much had, we had 93 targets last year. I'm looking at his routes run percentage per drop back. I mean, he was almost at 80%. Like, that's what you're looking for. You want guys that are running routes. So you don't want the Jonnu Smiths that are pretty much a glorified jumbo package tight end. That could change this year, but nobody's drafted Jonnu Smith unless you're like one of those FFPC 30 round leagues at this point. But yeah, Cole Komet is definitely a target of mine. He's been tough to get. It's certainly in best ball. I imagine he'll be a little bit tougher because I think he's got enough buzz on him. That people will kind of snap him up and kind of see that third year, maybe that breakout coming from Cole Komet.
Yeah, he's cruising. He's moving up.
I like it.
Yeah, for sure. Let's go. We got one more question. We'll wrap her up here. Let's see here. So, I mean, last pick in a best ball draft, or last pick, we'll go best ball because that's a little bit deeper. You feel like you need to take one more stab at a tight end. Like, obviously out of this, the Comets and the Everetts, Engrams, out of that tier, Howard. Outside, maybe the top 20, 24. Who's a tight end that interests you, if you're going to take just a dart throw on a tight end?
From half court, Howard.
Ready?
Not like the Carlton Banks half court.
Uzama.
Hey, let's go. The hometown hero.
Give me a little CJ Uzama, right? I mean, listen, they're running a scheme there that is all too familiar to the tight end, running that seam route, utilizing, a nice big body like Uzama. Sure, he's got the mobility of a refrigerator, but you know what?
Hey, so do I.
For the tail end of your draft, why not? If that dude becomes like a big ass red zone target for me, I'll take it. He's free, right? It's the last pick.
Boom. And dude, he got paid good money, man. He got paid good money, so they're gonna utilize him. And he's a fun guy to root for. I'm not sure how much you guys have seen the clips of that guy, but he seems like a fun dude, right?
Just
Like
say his name.
He had the Zach Wilson.
T-shirt.
Yep.
Yes.
The man of the year. He just needed the Team Homie Hopper hat to complete that.
So for me, from this crew, when we're getting this deep, I'm taking stabs on Brevin Jordan, the second-year tight end for the Texans. With the news, unfortunately John Mechie, the rookie, they just drafted a pretty high pick. He's going to miss the whole season, right? Brandon Cooks is going to lead that team in targets. We're fairly confident. That kind of boils down to Nico Collins or Brevin Jordan really is the second target on that team. I like Nico Collins. I have a lot of best ball teams where at the end of the draft, I just take Nico Collins and Brevin Jordan and just say, okay, especially if I have Davis Mills as a third quarterback or whatever, I just say, you know what? Somebody's got to get targets over there. Let me see if I can corner the market on that. Jordan looked pretty good in the red zone last year, had a couple touchdowns. He missed a good chunk of the season with injuries. Jordan Aiken is now gone. They've, the other tight ends on the roster are pretty much, they built it out so that he's the best pass catcher. The rest are clearly blocking tight ends. It's like, Farrell Brown, Anthony Auclair. It's like there's nobody there that jumps out really as a pass catcher besides him. So for a last pick, who cares? If he does nothing, then you didn't waste anything.
Y'all know I'm going with my sweet, sweet prince, Jalani Woods. Ultimate Frisbee player, Jelani Woods. But I mean, the Colts traded up to get him. They, obviously see a lot in him. We didn't see a lot out of him at Oklahoma State, but then when he went to Virginia, he was a red zone machine. Like, this guy has hands. There's not really a lot of target competition in Indianapolis, aside from Michael Pittman. We don't really know who's going to be that number 2 wide receiver. And then Jelani's playing with Mo Alley Cox and Kylan Granson. So why not have him? And I'm going to try to follow the trend where my very last pick ends up being a breakout. Last year I picked Freiermuth in the very last round of almost every single best ball. This year it's Jalani Woods.
Coop, you're
I think
muted.
you're muted.
Moderators, please remove Toronto Dave from the chat. Strip him of all his Cheesecake Factory promo codes. This is a bannable offense. This comment right here. Please, guards, get him out of my sight.
Howard, when you see the logs of the people who use the promo code, if you just see an influx of like PF Chang's after the Cheesecake Factories, it's Toronto Dave. I would assume. Brevin Jordan.
Be a big PF Chang's because I personally prefer the Cheesecake Factory.
Me too. I know that. What's the Raiders? Mark Davis lives at PF Chang's, doesn't he? Do you ever hear that? That he holds his meetings there. This guy that's worth $1 billion. Gets his haircut. Yeah, he finishes his rice and then they just take the bowl and put it on his head and they take a torch and just blow torch the hair off. That's I could probably give him a better haircut with that technique.
Yeah, I would guarantee that Vince Young is at a Cheesecake Factory right now. He probably has a tent out in the back. But
I love going to Cheesecake Factory and not even ordering dinner. Just keep bringing me out different slices of cheesecake, please.
That's a power move.
Okay, real quick.
Promo code alarm.
Favorite cheesecake. Round table.
Favorite cheesecake.
At Cheesecake Factory. Come on, we're trying to lean into it.
I need a week to prepare that answer.
I know, right? That's just
wow. Carrot cake
with a cream cheese frosting, so good. But I'll take just give me a nice regular old slice of cheesecake with the strawberry topping on it. Give me the strawberry filling in there.
I think I actually asked Wendy that. I think Wendy said something very similar when I asked her online. I think she just said the regular cheesecake. And the thing is, the important thing about cheesecake to me is the crust, the graham cracker crust. That's what does it for me, man. You could put anything on the rest of it. I don't really care.
Yeah, I don't have a Cheesecake Factory. I've never been to a Cheesecake Factory, so I cannot speak to this. I will defer to you guys.
They don't have them down there?
Not anywhere near me.
Oh, they only got Cracker Barrel down there.
That's right.
Yeah,
dude.
Cracker Barrel is a big thing.
Britt's
I don't go
favorite,
there either, though.
Down in Arkansas,
No.
Britt's favorite is the catfish cheesecake.
No.
Ooh, pig suey.
No. I like to noodle for catfish, but it doesn't go on cheesecake.
Have you been noodling?
Oh yeah, I grew up on the side of the Arkansas River, basically.
Oh shit, that's something I want to try, right? I want to try that. That must be nuts.
Yeah.
Sticking your hand in like that, pulling one out.
I don't know what any of that is. I'm a suburban kid who likes Central Air.
Dude, I'm a suburban kid too. You don't know. Go to the Google machine and type in noodling catfish. Dude, it is sick.
Are we doing a trip, dude? Are we doing a Fantasy Alarm noodling trip? For it?
Well, team building?
Yes.
I'll squat up, dude. I'll do some noodling.
I'm just afraid I'd end up like Ned Beatty in Deliverance, though. From down south. Sorry.
Oh, as soon as you hear a banjo, it's bad news for everybody.
Kev's
like,
down
look
there.
At the chubby Jewish guy.
Kev gets down there. He's like, "Where's the Central Air?" They're like, "You ain't from around here, is you, boy?"
Damn right I'm not. I lived
Where-
without it from like age 6 to like 18, and now I'm like, I have to have it. I'm like,
excuse me, sir. Is there cheesecake around here? Yeah, it's back the way you came.
Where are the napkins? Do you guys have napkins here?
Oh my lord.
Well, back to the football. I like
Just
Brevin
so
Jordan.
Yeah.
I also like Greg Dulcich too.
Yes.
Yes. Greg Dulcich is one guy that he's getting a lot of camp buzz. There's a lot in his way to have relevancy, but it's clear that what Noah Fant did to Albert O last year, as far as Albert O just kind of dominating metrics wise with yards per route run and just eating into his route share. It's looking like that kind of same path for Albert O, with Dulcich kind of nipping at his heels. He had 18 yards per reception last year at UCLA. I mean, Dulcich, not the best runner, but I could see him as like a kind of like a Dawson Knox, maybe a touchdown dependent guy, where if something happens to Albert O and, there's a path there for Greg Dulcich to maybe be relevant in fantasy. I mean, like Howard was saying, these guys are free. So any kind of production that you get out of them is already paying off, for you in your lineup. So take the stabs on like the receiving type tight ends. Like I would rather have those guys than like the John Bates and, and then take a stab on Trey McBride too. Like, why not? The things that we're saying about Zach Ertz, if Zach Ertz is like 1 foot in the ground, I mean, he's getting older. It's kind of ambiguous after Marquise Brown with Rondale Moore and AJ Green. Like, why can't Trey McBride, if he has a good camp and gets some buzz and actually can get on the field, why can't he be maybe an option? Then something happens to Zach Ertz, and then you're already staring at a tight end. You're looking at maybe a tight end 12 or in and around there that you got for basically nothing, and you could probably get him off the waiver wire too. So if you don't draft him, you might not have to draft him, but that's a guy that, these rookie tight ends, I mean, say what you want about the rookie tight end narrative, but there are guys in attractive spots where, they could find their way into fantasy value.
Hey, Howard, I know we got to get going, but before we go, Mr. Vanilla Ice Cream himself, never seen The Godfather, is in here talking trash about the Cheesecake Factory.
Can you take anything at his word now? I mean, you got to be kidding me, right? I mean, this dude it's insane. Can sit there and quote Con Air, right? and talk about Nick Cage's character there, right? He can talk about Nick Cage movies, but he's never seen The Godfather. Like, I'm sorry.
You've never seen The Godfather?
It's a fireable offense.
You've never seen it either, Britt?
I've never seen any of them. No.
Oh, God. Howard, what is the screening process?
We obviously don't have TVs in Arkansas. Duh. That's why.
Do we even do interviews before we hire these people? I mean, like, we could have serial killers at Fantasy Alarm. For all we know.
I just need to change my line of questioning when doing the interview process. I need to prioritize things like this, right?
Yeah. Shuffle some papers and be like, Luca Brasi sleeps with the fishes. What does that mean to you? And if they have no answer to that, you just say, thanks for coming in.
I think I hear
you could pick a chain restaurant to eat anywhere. Where would it be?
Yeah.
Red Robin.
That's a huge one, Britt. Britt, what do you got?
Ruby Tuesdays.
They all closed.
Pack your shit. No.
Yeah.
I can hear the chat now.
Oh, brother, this guy stinks.
Sorry.
Dude, this is actually Impemba just totally redeemed himself because this is a great answer. Gold Fever Wings at the 99, baby. Let's go. Let's get it.
Can you explain that to me like I'm 5?
Gold Fever sauce.
I don't even know what the 99 is.
The 99 restaurant?
Never heard of it. We don't have them.
Really? You guys don't have it?
Not in Syracuse, not in Fargo.
Oh my God. Dude.
I've never heard of it.
Big franchise opportunities, dude. It kind of runs the show out here. Kills it.
It's probably like a Golden Corral.
Yeah, right.
Golden Corral.
Or Old Country Buffet.
It's a classy family establishment. All right. We'll get into that next. We need to do a whole show on the 99. We'll get into that. What? I can't even with you guys.
We should broadcast from Fuddruckers.
Bennigan's, yeah.
Okay.
Where's your flair?
Yeah, the Rainforest Cafe. Are those still around?
Hey, at least 15 pieces of flair to be on this podcast.
We're doing a broadcast in the Rainforest Cafe, and every 10 minutes there's like a thunderstorm.
And 12 servers coming out to say happy birthday.
Just monkeys making sounds. Yeah, that'd be a great show.
We're live. from the
Isn't that
Rainforest
what we're
Cafe.
doing right now? Aren't we the bunch of monkeys just making sounds at this point? Like, let's get real.
What it is.
Not my monkeys, not my circus. Next week, we will have Jacob Sanderson on. We'll be talking about some NFL betting lines, like some season-long lines. Coop, really wanted to have that as a show and as a gesture to him, because I kind of like him and I get to see him in a couple weeks, and he won't beat me up if I let him have this kind of show. I decided to give it to him because I'm a nice guy.
Sandbagging my show. This is gonna be one of the best shows of the year, boy. Live
Every
from the
show is the
Rainforest,
best show of the year.
live from the Rainforest Cafe.
Oh, my Lanta.
I'm gonna FaceTime you from Chili's.
Perfect, dude.
Barbecue sauce. That's all
all right, Kev, take us out.
All right, it's time to wrap up this this monkey stand here. So, for Britt Flynn, for Andrew Cooper, for Howard Bender, thank you so much for joining us. We'll have to do it again a lot sooner than we got you on this time. I'm so sorry. I'll have to fire my secretary.
Oh, you're out of a job, Coop. Sorry. Again.
Yeah, like I'm the one that
Like
organizes
3 times
any of
today.
I know, like, at least I've seen.
I just fired him 14 seconds ago, and oh my Lord. But yeah, for again, Howard, sincerely, thank you so much for hopping on here, and we'll obviously have you on as the get through the season here. For Britt Flynn, for Andrew Cooper, I am Kevin Tompkins, and I will lead us with a toodles.